The gym was louder than usual that evening. Metal plates crashed against each other. Sweat dripped onto rubber mats. People laughed, shouted, and tested their limits. Then the noise slowly faded. Not because someone yelled. Not because a fight started. But because a man stepped forward. Keanu Reeves. No cameras. No entourage. No announcement. Just a plain black t-shirt, loose training pants, and worn shoes that looked like they had seen years of use. He didn't look impressive. That's what fooled everyone. Across the room, Bolo Yeung finished his set and stood up. Massive. Veins like ropes across his arms. A presence that demanded attention without saying a word. People moved out of his way instinctively. Bolo noticed Keanu watching. Not staring. Just observing. A slow smile crept across Bolo's face. He walked toward Keanu, every step heavy, deliberate. "So," he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear, "you train here now?" A few people chuckled. Keanu nodded once. Yes. That was it. No attitude. No explanation. Bolo laughed. "You know who I am?" he asked. Keanu met his eyes. "I do." The room felt tighter. Bolo tilted his head, amused. "And you still stand there like that?" Keanu didn't move. Didn't tense up. Didn't step back. Just calm. Almost unreadable. That calmness irritated Bolo. He turned to the crowd. "This guy thinks he can spar with me," Bolo said, smiling wider. "In front of all of you." More laughter. Some people shook their heads. Others whispered. This wasn't fair. This wasn't smart. Keanu finally spoke. "If you want," he said quietly. The tone wasn't challenging. It was accepting. That's when something shifted. Bolo stepped closer. "You sure?" he said, lowering his voice. "Because once we start, there's no pretending." Keanu held his gaze. "No pretending," he replied. Silence fell. No music. No talking. Only eyes watching. What everyone believed they were about to see was a lesson for Keanu. What they didn't realize was that this moment would become the biggest regret of Bolo Yeung's career. And what happened next, no one was ready for. Most people in that gym thought they already knew how this would end. They'd seen this scene before. A quiet guy. Minimal movement. No show of strength. And then there was Beyond the Lookout Yeung. A man whose reputation entered the room before he did. Decades of martial arts. A physique built like a weapon. To them this wasn't a challenge. It was entertainment. Whispers spread quickly. Is he serious? Does he even know who that is? This won't last 10 seconds. Keanu Reeves heard none of it. Or maybe he did and chose not to react. He stepped onto the mat slowly. No warm-up. No stretching. Not because he was careless, but because he didn't need to prove readiness. What the crowd didn't understand was this. Keanu had spent years training when no one was watching. Not for movies. Not for applause. But for control. Discipline over ego. Precision over power. Every movement he made was measured. Bolo rolled his shoulders, cracking his neck loudly. He wanted dominance before the fight even began. He wanted Keanu to feel small. "You still got time to walk away," Bolo said, half smiling. "No shame in it." Keanu shook his head gently. "I'm fine." 2 words. Not brave. Not afraid. Just honest. That response unsettled Bolo. People like Bolo were used to fear. They fed on it. But Keanu gave him nothing. A coach nearby hesitated. "Light spar," he said cautiously. "Keep it clean." Bolo nodded. Keanu nodded too. But their nods meant different things. Bolo's meant confidence. Keanu's meant responsibility. The crowd gathered closer. Phones came out. Everyone wanted proof. Proof that reputation still ruled over silence. Bolo stepped forward, towering over Keanu. "You're calm," he said. "That's dangerous for you." Keanu looked up slightly. "Calm is safe," he replied. That earned a laugh. But not from Bolo. Something in that answer didn't sit right. This wasn't arrogance. This was experience. Still, pride pushed Bolo forward. He raised his hands. Not defensive. Inviting. A challenge. Keanu raised his hands too. Loose. Relaxed. No tension in his shoulders. Anyone trained would have noticed it immediately. This wasn't beginner posture. This was someone conserving energy. The coach raised his hand. "1 round," he said. "Let's see." The room held its breath. In that moment, the outcome wasn't decided by size or fame. It was decided years earlier. In empty gyms, early mornings, and silent discipline. Bolo believed this was about strength. Keanu knew it was about timing. And timing was something Bolo had already lost. Backhand index pointing right because the first move was about to change everything. Bolo didn't wait. The moment the signal was given, he stepped forward hard. Not to test. Not to feel distance. But to dominate. His foot slammed against the mat, sending a clear message. This is my space. Keanu didn't retreat. That alone surprised a few people. Bolo smirked. Still standing? He muttered loud enough to sting. He threw the first strike. Fast. Heavy. Straight toward Keanu's head. Gasps filled the room. But Keanu wasn't where the punch landed. He shifted, not back but slightly to the side. Minimal movement. Efficient. The punch cut through empty air. Bolo turned quickly, annoyed. He swung again. This time wider. Stronger. Keanu raised his arm and redirected it. Not a block. A guide. Bolo's momentum carried him forward half a step more than he intended. It was subtle. But trained eyes noticed. So did Bolo. His smile faded for a second. Then his pride kicked in. He laughed. Lucky, he said. Louder now. For the crowd. As if to reassure himself. He rushed again. 2 strikes. Then a third. Raw power. No patience. Keanu stayed calm. He moved like water around stone. Each step placed perfectly. Each breath steady. No wasted energy. The crowd began to quiet. This wasn't what they expected. Bolo landed a glancing blow to Keanu's shoulder. He grinned. There it is, he said. You feel that? Keanu nodded once. Yes. That answer confused him. No anger. No frustration. Just acknowledgement. Bolo shoved him slightly, breaking the sparring rhythm. A clear sign of disrespect. Come on, Bolo said. Fight back. Keanu looked at him. Really looked. I am, he replied. That's when it happened. Bolo charged again full force. He aimed to end it. Keanu stepped inside the attack. Not away. Inside. His movement was fast, but controlled. A turn of the hips. A shift of balance. Bolo suddenly felt the ground tilt. He stumbled. Not a fall. But enough. Enough for the room to react. A low murmur spread. Bolo caught himself and stepped back quickly. His breathing had changed. Slightly heavier. Barely noticeable. But real. That doesn't count, he snapped. The coach raised a hand. Clean, he said. Continue. Bolo wiped his face and forced a laugh. All right, he said. Now I'm warmed up. But his eyes betrayed him. The confidence wasn't solid anymore. It was cracking. Keanu adjusted his stance. Still relaxed. Still patient. Still silent. The disrespect had been loud. The response had been quiet. And somehow, that made it worse. Because Bolo was beginning to understand something terrifying. This man wasn't surviving his attacks. He was studying them. Backhand index pointing right, and once someone understands your rhythm, the fight is already lost. The room didn't sound the same anymore. Earlier there had been laughter. Whispers. Phones clicking quietly. Now, only breathing. Bolo rolled his shoulders again, slower this time. He tried to look relaxed, but his chest rose heavier than before. Let's go, he said. But the tone had changed. Less mocking. More forced. Keanu stepped forward just enough to close the distance. Still calm. Still balanced. No wasted motion. Bolo threw another punch, sharper this time. Not reckless. Calculated. Keanu slipped it by inches. Not luck. Timing. Bolo followed with a kick. Fast. Powerful. Keanu checked it lightly and stepped aside. The impact echoed across the mat. But Keanu didn't flinch. The crowd leaned in. Someone whispered. He's not even trying to hurt him. That's when Bolo realized something unsettling. Keanu wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to control. Bolo attacked again. This time with anger. Combination strikes. Pressure. Force. Keanu absorbed none of it. He moved inside the strikes, redirecting arms, shifting balance, turning power against itself. Then, for the first time, Keanu responded. A short movement. Barely visible. A controlled sweep. Bolo's foot lifted off the mat. Just for a second. But it was enough. Beyond the lookout staggered back, catching himself before falling. The room reacted instantly. Gasp. Wide eyes. Silence. Bolo straightened quickly, face tightening. That was cheap, he said. But no one laughed. No one agreed. Keanu said nothing. That silence hit harder than any strike. The coach stepped closer, watching carefully now. Stay clean, he warned. Bolo nodded. But inside something cracked. He had never been handled like this. Not by someone smaller. Not by someone quieter. Certainly not by someone who looked like they didn't need to prove anything. Bolo charged again, desperate to reassert dominance. Keanu moved into him. A pivot. A shoulder turn. A subtle shift of weight. Suddenly, Bolo felt pressure on his center. His balance vanished. Before he could react, he was forced down to one knee. Not slammed. Not thrown. Guided. Controlled. The mat touched his skin. Just briefly. But long enough. The room exploded. Not with cheers. With shock. Bolo pushed himself up instantly, face flushed. Again, he snapped. But his voice betrayed him. Keanu stepped back. He raised his hands. That's enough, he said. Not loudly. Not proudly. Just calmly. Bolo froze. The words didn't register at first. What? He said. You don't need to keep going, Keanu continued. You already know. That sentence cut deeper than humiliation. Bolo looked around. No one was laughing now. No phones raised confidently. Just people staring at him. Watching. Judging. For the first time in that gym, Bolo Yeung felt exposed. He had come in to teach a lesson. Instead, he was the lesson. The coach stepped between them. That's it, he said firmly. We're done. Bolo wanted to argue. You could see it in his clenched jaw. But he didn't. He couldn't. Because deep down he understood the truth. Keanu Reeves hadn't embarrassed him. He had shown him mercy. And that realization? That's what made the regret sink in. Keanu lowered his hands and nodded respectfully. No victory pose. No celebration. Just acknowledgement. Strength without ego. As Keanu stepped off the mat, the room parted for him. Not out of fear. Out of respect. Bolo stood still. Breathing heavy. Staring at the floor. Knowing one undeniable fact. He hadn't been beaten by force. He'd been defeated by mastery. Backhand index pointing right, and the most painful lesson of all was that he had asked for it. No one spoke at first. The mat still carried the heat of what had just happened. But the energy in the room was completely different now. Bolo Yeung stood near the center. Chest rising. Hands clenched. Eyes no longer sharp, just distant. Moments earlier he had been the one everyone feared. Now, everyone was watching him for a different reason. Keanu Reeves was already walking away. No drama. No pause to accept applause. Just calm footsteps toward the edge of the gym. That silence hurt more than any strike. Bolo finally exhaled and turned toward the crowd. Some people avoided his eyes. Others stared openly. Not mocking. Not impressed. Just processing. This wasn't the outcome anyone had imagined. Someone near the wall whispered, "I've never seen him handled like that." Another replied. He didn't even look angry. That was the part no one could stop thinking about. Keanu hadn't fought with emotion. He hadn't fought to dominate. He had fought like someone who had nothing to prove. Bolo wiped his face with his forearm and laughed quietly. But it wasn't real laughter. It was the sound people make when they realize they've crossed a line. He took a step forward, then stopped. Keanu had paused near the exit. Not turning around. Just waiting. Not for praise. For closure. Be on the lookout swallowed. Then, slowly, deliberately, he walked toward him. Each step felt heavier than the last. The crowd parted again. No phones raised now. No whispers. Just attention. Bolo stopped a few feet away from Keanu. For a moment he said nothing. Then he lowered his head. Just slightly. But enough. "I misjudged you," Bolo said. The words came out rough. Not rehearsed. Not easy. "I thought strength was enough," he continued. "I was wrong." Keanu turned and looked at him. No satisfaction in his eyes. No victory. Only understanding. "Most people do," Keanu replied. That response hit harder than anger ever could. Bolo nodded again. This time deeper. "I challenged you to feel powerful," he admitted. "And you showed me how little control I had." The gym felt smaller. Like everyone had just been included in a lesson they didn't know they needed. Keanu didn't interrupt. He didn't correct him. He just listened. "That's rare," Bolo added quietly. "Most men would have taken advantage of that moment." Keanu shook his head. "Winning isn't the same as humiliating someone," he said. "And control is stronger than force." Bolo let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. For the first time since the challenge, his shoulders relaxed. Not because he felt safe, but because he felt honest. The coach stepped closer, nodding respectfully at both men. "Enough for today," he said. "You've both made your point." But only one of them had changed. As Keanu finally walked out, people didn't cheer. They stood still. Some nodded. Some looked inspired. Some simply felt humbled. Bolo remained behind. He sat down on the bench slowly. The mat in front of him empty now. He stared at it for a long time, replaying every moment. The rush, the confidence, the miscalculation. He had believed size would decide everything. That reputation would carry him. Instead, he had been exposed in front of everyone. Not as weak, but as uncontrolled. And that realization stayed with him. Later, when people talked about that night, they didn't describe punches or techniques. They talked about restraint. They talked about silence. They talked about how the strongest man in the room was the one who never raised his voice. Bolo Yeung never forgot that lesson. Because regret doesn't always come from losing. Sometimes it comes from realizing you challenged the wrong kind of strength. Backhand index pointing right, and once you understand that difference, you never see power the same way again. The gym didn't return to normal that night. People kept training, but the noise felt different. Lighter, quieter, more respectful. Everyone had seen strength before. They had seen intimidation. They had seen dominance. But what happened between Keanu Reeves and Bolo Yeung was something else entirely. It wasn't about who hit harder. It was about who understood power. Bolo Yeung sat alone for a long time after most people left. The mirrors reflected a man who looked the same on the outside, but felt very different on the inside. For years he had believed one thing. If you're the strongest, you control the room. That night shattered that belief. Keanu Reeves never tried to control anyone. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand respect. He didn't even claim victory. And yet, the entire room adjusted itself around him. That realization hurt. Because it meant respect couldn't be forced. It had to be earned quietly. Bolo replayed the moment again and again. The calm eyes. The measured steps. The way Keanu stepped into danger instead of away from it. There was no fear there. But there was no ego either. That combination was unsettling. Most men are loud because they're unsure. Most power is dramatic because it's fragile. What Keanu showed was something rarer. Confidence that didn't need witnesses. Discipline that didn't need applause. Bolo finally understood why he had felt uncomfortable so early on. It wasn't because Keanu was weak. It was because Keanu was grounded. And grounded people don't get pushed easily. The next morning the story spread. Not as gossip. As respect. People didn't say, "Did you see Bolo lose?" They said, "Did you see how calm that guy was?" That difference mattered. Because losing a fight fades. But losing control of yourself stays. Bolo Yeung didn't quit training after that. He trained differently. Less for intimidation. More for balance. Less for proving. More for understanding. And every time someone new entered the gym, quiet, underestimated, ignored, Bolo noticed. He didn't mock them. He didn't challenge them publicly. He remembered. Because he had learned the hardest way possible. That silence is not weakness. It's often preparation. Keanu Reeves never spoke about that night publicly. No interviews. No stories. He didn't need to. The people who were there carried the lesson forward. That real strength doesn't look like rage. It looks like restraint. It looks like knowing you could hurt someone, and choosing not to. In a world obsessed with dominance, that choice is rare. And powerful. Most people want to win arguments. Win fights. Win attention. But the strongest people? They win control over themselves. That's what Bolo Yeung challenged that night. And that's what he regretted. Not because he lost, but because he misunderstood what power actually was. Power isn't how many people fear you. It's how many people feel safe around you. And once you learn that, you stop trying to prove anything. You start becoming something. Weeks later the gym looked the same. Same mats. Same mirrors. Same iron plates stacked against the walls. But the people inside were different. There was less noise now. Less showing off. More focus. The story of that night hadn't faded. It had settled. Like a quiet rule no one needed to say out loud. New members still came in trying to prove themselves. Big voices. Big egos. Big movements. And every time it happened, someone would glance toward the mat where it all took place. Not as a warning. As a reminder. Bolo Yeung was still there most days. Still powerful. Still respected. But something about him had softened. Not weaker. Wiser. He trained longer now. Slower. More deliberately. And when people watched him, they noticed something strange. He smiled less at intimidation. And more at discipline. One evening a young man walked in. Quiet. Slim. No confidence in his posture. The kind of person who usually got ignored. The old Bolo might have tested him. Challenged him. made an example out of him. But that night Bolo didn't. He simply nodded and made space. Because he remembered how wrong he had been once. And how expensive that lesson felt. Keanu Reeves never returned to that gym. But his presence never really left. People still talked about the way he moved. Not fast. Not flashy. Just intentional. They talked about how the room itself seemed to calm down when he stepped onto the mat. As if chaos didn't know how to exist around him. That's the kind of strength most people never develop. Because it requires patience. It requires humility. And most of all, it requires being okay with not being underestimated. Bolo Yeung had challenged Keanu in front of everyone. Thinking the crowd would be on his side. Thinking reputation would protect him. But reputation is loud. And loud things break easily. What he faced instead was something quieter. Something solid. Something that didn't crack under pressure. He realized too late that some people don't train to fight others. They train to master themselves. And when you meet someone like that, you don't defeat them. You discover yourself. That night didn't end a career. It didn't ruin a legacy. But it rewrote one. Bolo Yeung didn't regret stepping onto the mat. He regretted stepping onto it for the wrong reason. Because when you challenge someone out of ego, you're not asking if they're stronger. You're exposing your own weakness. Keanu Reeves didn't humiliate him. Didn't chase glory. Didn't claim the moment. He let it go. And that's why it stayed. The strongest people don't need endings with applause. They leave behind understanding. And that understanding travels further than fear ever could. So the next time you see someone quiet, someone underestimated, someone who doesn't feel the need to announce themselves, remember this. They might not be preparing to impress you. They might be preparing to outgrow you. Because real power doesn't arrive with noise. It arrives with calm. And once you recognize it, it's already too late to challenge it.